Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this first ITB Ministers Roundtable, sponsored by the MC Group. We are very proud to have assembled a great group of ministers from different continents to help us make some important discussions happen here on how policy can influence tourism strategy and how this will help us to solve some of the problems on over-tourism that we've discussed today with representatives of the private sector and others. So quickly, before we get started, we have one audience voting question, just to get a feel for how you in the room today gauge this over-tourism problem at the end of all these sessions. Could we have the question, please? So you all have clickers next to you. We asked a similar question at the start of the day, so we want to see whether you feel more hopeful now at the end of it. In your opinion, how big will the over-tourism problem be 5 years from now? So when the music sounds, you can... There you go. So please make your selection out of those 4 options, and this will provide us a basis for the ministerial discussion as well on how we can use policy to change this. Wow. Okay. That's very clear. Many destinations will suffer from over-tourism in the next 5 years, so it seems that we have our work cut out for us. So to help me shed some light on these issues now, I'm very honored to ask 3 ministers to the stage. The Honorable Minister Alphonse KJ from India. The Honourable Minister Ermen Bartlett from Jamaica. And the Honourable Minister Lina Anab from Jordan. Please join us up here. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
You've come a long way.
Well, not too far.
No, not too far? Okay.
8 hours and 3 hours of layoff and then another hour, so it's just 14 hours.
14 hours, okay. That's
world is small.
Only half a day, that's fine. It's a good investment to come and join a panel like this.
Thank you.
So when we see these numbers, that 80% of the people in this room who are probably all educated in this area and think about tourism a lot, think that over-tourism is going to be a big challenge in the next 5 years. What are your views on this?
Well, I really don't agree with that. I just believe possibly that few destinations would get overcrowded, and they really need to find solutions to that. And I don't think they have a solution yet for those big destinations which are going to be overcrowded.
Okay. So there's still work to do?
Yes, there is a lot of work to do. I mean, if you take my country, I can possibly point out just maybe one destination which is overcrowded, which is the Taj Mahal. Yes, because we have 5 million people coming to that one destination. Other than that, I mean, mine is a very vast country. It's a huge continent. And take, for example, I have 70% of the Himalayas in my country, and which is almost completely unexplored. So I have a lot of opportunities, plenty of scope for developing big-time destinations all over my country.
Okay. So maybe, Minister Bartlett, on an island like yours, the space is slightly more limited compared to the Indian subcontinent. How are you addressing these challenges?
Well, you know, it's fair that the comments that Minister made a while ago should be contextualized, because the issue then, what is over-tourism, perhaps is the first consideration that we should engage. Is over-tourism too many visitors? Is over-tourism visitors in the presence of resource constraints and capacity challenges? Is over-tourism about access and what is available in the area? Or is over-tourism the lack of experiences that are being provided by the recipient destination. So I think these are questions that would immediately come to mind and could, in fact, lead to conclusions that some of our friends say 5 years' time you could have that problem. I believe globally we will not have that problem. We could have that problem in certain places depending on the capacity of the recipient countries to deal with tourism, but more importantly, to respond to the demand of tourism. So what then becomes the question of the day? How do you build capacity? How do you use technology? How do you use knowledge? How do you use innovation? How do you become more nimble and responsive to the changes that are taking place? And how do you diversify and create inclusiveness to ensure that there is going to be the possibility for a wide range of experiences to deal with the psychographic and demographic profiles as they change.
Thank you very much for that insight. Minister Anab, how is Jordan preparing for the future of tourism?
I would have to agree about the issue of defining what is over-tourism and how we go about it. For example, today, if we look at the statistics and we look at the issues or the countries where over-tourism is an issue, we find that most of them are cities. And these cities are, there's a very good reason why this is happening, because you also have emerging markets where people who have not been known to travel are now exploring the world, and they are from big markets like China and maybe some other markets. So this is, I'm not saying that over-tourism is because of China, but what I'm trying to say is that today people are traveling who did not used to travel in the past, which means that they will go to the iconic, let's say, destinations, people or the places where people would go. And this is all tying in very logically, because if you look at the cities where we know there's over-tourism, these are the cities that are known to be touristically very, very popular. So as far as Jordan is concerned, we are looking at all of this, and fortunately today we don't have over-tourism. Actually, we also believe that the number of visitors could be higher than what we have today. But we are also watching what's happening very carefully, because there are lessons to be learned, and for us, we need to take the necessary precautions, because we have iconic sites in Jordan that cannot take an excess of a certain number of visitors. So we are learning, we are seeing how we can preempt the situation before we find ourselves in the middle of it. One very important thing to realize: over-tourism should not come as a surprise, in my opinion. Because if we look at the rate of growth of number of travelers, we see that today, maybe 3 years ago, we had 1 billion travelers. Today, we have 1.3 billion. And it is expected by 2025, I think we will have 2 billion. This means that there will be a lot of people traveling, and there will be places where the number of visitors has to be managed in a sustainable way.
I think those are very good points. I think especially this growth of the middle class in very populous countries, one of them is India. How are you structuring your tourism policy also for your outbound?
See, I think over-tourism is when a community says, that's it. We don't want any more people. So ultimately, it's for the community there to decide, is it really over-tourism? I think there are issues in this. Take, for example, the Taj Mahal. I think problems are, earlier there wasn't a good road to Taj Mahal. Now from Delhi, you reach exactly in 2 hours. So most people today get back to Delhi, and therefore the benefit to the local community. If people were staying overnight, they would do shopping, they would go to the hotel, buy souvenirs. Now, because the road is now so much better, you get back on the same day, and local community doesn't benefit. And therefore, they would say, sorry, we don't want more people out here. A second way to look at this, take, for example, the Taj, which gets 500,000 people. Now, I've been saying, now, Taj closes at 5 o'clock in the evening. Why can't we open it out for the night? In fact, viewing the Taj by night possibly would be a much more romantic proposition than seeing it during the daytime. You could even charge more. So there are solutions. So if I would open it out 24 hours, then possibly the pressure on the monument would be much, much less. Yes. And the incomes would be much, much more. And if you open it out for the night, advantage to the local community also would be a lot more, because people would stay overnight. They would occupy hotel rooms, create jobs. They would hire taxis and transport and go shopping. So these are the ways to look at it, and how to transform from a situation of over-tourism into an optimal condition. This can be created. Little imagination need to be used.
Okay, so you're essentially extending the capacity of the Taj Mahal.
Yes, plus of course you got to create the necessary infrastructure, like a lot of these cities which don't have metros.
Right.
You're overcrowding the streets. Mm-hmm. Now, if you can create a metro, you're taking the people off that road. So then local people wouldn't say, these people are a nuisance. So there are also ways of dealing by creating new infrastructure and technologies to overcome this problem.
Okay, that's a very good point, yes?
Well, I'd like to, if you will, go a little deeper, because tourism today is a mega global industry. 10% of global GDP, 300 million workers, some 1 in 9, 1 in 10 of all the workers of the world. 79 countries with GDP dependence of 10% and more. And in countries like the Caribbean, where we are perhaps the most tourism-dependent region on earth, our GDP dependence run over 50%.
Oh my God.
So you're talking now about not an industry which Marco Polo knew about. You're talking about something that is driving global economy. So tourism is fast becoming also a commodity. It is now the fastest growing commodity. And first time ever, Wall Street is interested in tourism. We had a NASDAQ listing a few weeks ago of one of the largest companies in the region that are expanding now in the Caribbean. So the point we're making is that the issue of over-tourism is now going to be scientifically examined. And how do you position tourism as a mega driver of economic growth so that it enables enrichment and empowerment. So what is over-tourism then in that context? Is going to strictly challenge the world to look at capacity. And that was part of my original comments. It is about building capacity. And I think Minister touched on it very well. It's about how do we create in small countries like, say, Jamaica, where we are now getting 2 visitors to 1 local citizen. How do you build capacity so that the competition for basic resources within the recipient countries doesn't put the visitor arrival at risk? How do you ensure that the communities around the resort centers are not bereft of basic amenities while the hotels are lavish in all the wonderful facilities and creature comforts that they have? These are the points of resentment. These are the points of disturbance. These are the points that we have to deal with. So it becomes a policy issue on the part of countries that embrace tourism. We have to examine how public policies are now reconfigured and the kind of architecture that we create to ensure that visitor arrival doesn't become a local situation.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear from both of you is that your biggest interest is to have tourists benefit the local communities.
Yeah.
How is that in Jordan? What policies do you work with to ensure that the benefit from tourism stays in the country?
Yeah. Look, I think over-tourism is a phenomenon that is becoming global, and it's a result, if you like, of global mega trends like urbanization. So the crowded environment is becoming crowded not only because of tourists, because the living space or the urban living space is becoming is having a lot of pressure. And today, people, if we look at city tourism, for example, city tourism is gaining a lot of popularity. For us in Jordan, how do we go about this? Again, I would say we're very fortunate because we have the luxury of planning based on lessons learned from live examples that we are seeing. Diversifying the product, I think, is very important. Diversifying the supply of what we have. Moving out into areas where we would have, where we need to do some rural revitalization through tourism. That's one aspect that we can do. We can ease the pressure of certain that over-tourism might cause or has the potential of causing. Another thing which I think is very important, again, what is over-tourism? In a nutshell, it is too many tourists per kilometer, square kilometer, or per area, or whatever. So over-tourism is not equal everywhere. It's basically concentrated in certain areas. So this becomes an issue of policy. How can I regulate or leverage or manipulate policymaking in order to ease off the pressure, as well as in order to provide incentives for other places for it to be developed. So I tell you, this morning we were in a lecture and it was about over-tourism, and they were talking about Burj Khalifa. Burj Khalifa in Dubai is very, very popular. Everybody wants to go there, but if everybody ends up going, who wants to go there, ends up going there, it's a disaster. So what they did, they regulated it through price. So after a certain number, you don't pay double, you pay quadruple what you would pay for visiting the Burj Khalifa. Another area I think where we should be investing in, and we are seriously looking into investing in, is technology. Today we have Petra in Jordan. Petra is a very sensitive site. So for sure, it cannot take an excess number. It's an excess number of visitors. So the way we do it is maybe have show an app or a service whereby if you want to go visit, you know whether there are too many visitors there or not. So you know that it might not be a good idea to go. Maybe you wait a little. I think the ways of getting around it are many. It's just a matter of putting the right mix together. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing in all of this is understanding what the issue is at hand and which touch points one needs to tackle.
Yes, I think that's a very sensible approach to this. Just joined us on the stage is the Honourable Minister Blendi Klossi from Albania. Thank you for joining us. So perhaps since you just came in, Albania is a developing destination, big in hiking tourism or outdoor tourism. How are you positioning Albania to become a sustainable destination moving forward?
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks that I'm here with you. And at the same time, sorry that I'm coming a little bit late, but we've been in our stand and it has been really crowded over there, because Albania is right now like the new destination in our region, in the Mediterranean, in Europe. And we are trying to go in two directions. First, how to increase the number of tourism entering in Albania, and how to increase the capacity for new tourism in our country, but at the same time how to protect Albania like the new destination, not to be called like one of the cheapest one. We are trying to capitalize the new industry of tourism, and that's our philosophy and our strategy, how to grow out tourism in Albania, but just not only the number of the tourism, but how to go with, we call it with low volume, so with less people, more money. And in this perspective, we are trying to be able to compete with the wolves of the tourism in our region, so like it is Italy, Greece, Turkey, Croatia, even Montenegro. So we have a lot of challenge to make it on, and how to be in this market. And to answer to your question is how to diversify the offer that we have in Albanian tourism. And these offers go more to outdoor tourism and using the beauty of the nature in Albania. And we are so lucky that still we have the virgin mountains, virgin seaside, and even beautiful lagoon, rivers, and everything else. So how to become a new European destination, natural one. That's our philosophy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
See, one of the things which we are trying to strategize in India is we are a very large country, it's a continent. 70% of the Himalayas is in India. Mm-hmm. And all those states, and that's about 4,500 miles from Kashmir to the northeast of India, to Manipur. We have that entire stretch on the countryside below that, which is very sparsely populated. And then, so this year we said we're going to promote adventure tourism. So these are products which we didn't have earlier. So very large number of people we can still take in, millions of people. Mm-hmm. Our inflow last year was 16.5 million people, the international tourist arrivals. If I get another 10 million people, I have no problems because I have these vast tracts of land which is unoccupied, not too much of a density of population, and it can be very exciting. And this is the kind of destination for the millennials we'd like to build on. You know, trekking, paragliding, river water, rafting, and cycling, a whole lot of stuff is available, and products which are going to be exciting, which are going to be experiential for a whole lot of people. Again, we are going back to the roots and saying, what's India's strength? We are a 5,000-year-old civilization. Our huge strength is the belief that you and I and the rest of us, we are one. We go beyond that. The whole universe is one. So yoga is based on that theory that we are all one integral part. So we're promoting yoga in a big way. Now, yoga doesn't need to be necessarily located in the city center. No, we don't encourage that. We like these things to happen pretty far away, out there, which are, areas which are conducive. It needs a kind of an atmosphere, isn't it? Again, Ayurveda, which again fundamentally believes that your cure lies within you in the universe. You don't need synthetic drugs to cure you. Nature has it all. So that's Ayurveda. We are pushing in a big way. So all these takes tourists away from the cities, right, into the villages. So these are strategies which we are kind of working on and succeeding pretty well.
Okay. I think we...
So to build sustainability and small island states, and perhaps I'll be their spokesman for this minute. Small island states have to look at their vulnerabilities and to see how we can develop, again, capacity to deal with that, in my hand, in 3 great ways. One, to deal with environmental sustainability, to build out our capacity to deal with climatic events and seismic events that we are susceptible to in that area, and to build also the ability of the people in the communities to manage better the environment and to deal with the biodiversity and to protect and to husband those critical elements. And the second is to build out economic sustainability, to build projects that create jobs and to include women and young people and different diverse groups into creating and innovating. Mm-hmm. Because tourism is all about ideas. It's about how do you convert ideas to material elements with a price, and a price that people will pay for. So what it means is that you need not be a rocket scientist to earn from tourism. You need not be loaded with PhDs to earn from tourism. You need an idea. So what do we need to do with that idea? We need to hone and develop that idea. We need to train the people. Then we need to provide capital we need to fund those ideas. We need to invest in those ideas. And thirdly, we need to create capacity for those, the products of those creative and cultural assets to be marketed. And so those are the things by way of strategy that we are adopting in Jamaica, those two. And the third is social sustainability. How do we build the communities, build the human capacity, to build the capital, the human capital that is going to create the quality of life that will bring value to the experiences that the visitor will consume when they get there. So if we're able to strategize around those three critical pillars, then the sustainability for small island states such as ours, and by extension, the world, will be preserved.
Excellent. So if we stay with the topic of sustainability sort of in general, not on over-tourism now, but sustainability. Last year we had the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development from the UNWTO. And since then, I guess there's been a push to include sustainable policies in line with the Sustainable Development Goals and the 2030 agenda in your policies. Have you in Jordan thought about how to integrate the Sustainable Development Goals in your policies for tourism?
Absolutely. I think sustainability, or the SDGs, which took over from the Millennial Development Goals, which take place usually for 15 years apart, they are basically what we would call in the world of business best practices. For a business to succeed, there are certain parameters that need to be looked at, that need to be considered. For a business to survive and also to be to have the impact it should have in a holistic manner and at a community level, so that everybody can benefit from it. So this is really how we look at it in Jordan in terms of why we want to be sustainable. We want to be sustainable because we believe that there's a pie, and the pie needs to be spread or distributed equally. There is benefits. There are, today we are talking about a very vibrant sector, which is the tourism sector. We might have certain challenges economically speaking, but we know that we have a resource called our iconic, or let's say endowed resources. We have also the creativity to also have created resources where we can bring in all that potential that we have in order to grow our economy and in order to achieve economic growth. Economic growth does not mean anything if it doesn't get distributed equally. And what does equal distribution mean? It means that we go out and we make sure that all those who have a potential, this potential is being capitalized on, is being identified, and as well as supported and encouraged in order for us to also widen the product base of what we have. We started by talking about over-tourism. Only by diversifying the product, and we can only diversify the product if we make sure that it is done in a sustainable way, that we can again ease off some of the pressure that we could be experiencing in certain iconic sites or in certain cities. In our case, for example, we have Wadi Rum and we have Petra and we have those I know whoever wants to go to Jordan, this is on their bucket list, but I can assure you these are only the tip of the iceberg, and we have many other interesting sites where if we use them right, we grow the business, we grow the economy through tourism, and we also spread the benefits of it to everyone, or to a much wider base. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So in Albania, have you started thinking about how you're going to use this framework from the UN to help you diversify and ensure that whatever growth you develop is beneficial to all?
Yeah, it's clear that even in Albania is the same philosophy, and thanks to the global policy, thinking global and take the solution local. We are trying to make this a reality, and for that reason the new government of Albania, which has been created 6 months before, is created for the first time the new ministry, the ministry that I'm honored to lead, Ministry of Tourism and Environment. So And with only one sentence, the job description of our ministry is how to find a sustainable equilibrium between the sustainable development of tourism and at the same time sustainable protection of the environment. And taking consideration that in our country, in Albania, a country underdeveloped, making a sustainable development of tourism is the idea that how we can bring that like the new economy and how to protect this economy to grow up not only with creating the infrastructure for tourism, but even to create the same spirit all over the country. And for that reason, we are going in two very important directions. First of all is how to create the new capacity, just not only for tourism, but we have already approved right now in the government a new policy about talking about the agrotourism, let's say taking into consideration all the benefit that in Albania we have for good food, bio-food, good nature, and so on. We have created a new network of the agrotourism, small business, and so to create a sustainable development in this kind of tourism. And the second one, which is for us is very important, is the reform that we are making in the vocal education training. So talking about the new philosophy in Albania for how to bring more students in the training school and preparing services for the new generation, and how to create in the Albanian society a new philosophy that tourism is not just the industry of the service, but is an industry which can produce much more than any other industry in the country. And like we know that this kind of industry is not something which brings the money in one chapter of the budget, but is an industry and a beneficial which goes to thousands and thousands of families. We're trying to do this kind of policy for the common people with, like our colleague even say, creating more jobs, creating more capacity, creating more quality, and in the same time creating a new system of the people which know how to do something in their professional education philosophy.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we have a question from the audience for the panel.
Thank you. What an honor to speak to all of you. Thank you. It seems to me that a DMO, the M stands for marketing. It's an offensive operation. They get incentivized to get more people in. They are happy when they win advertising awards. But there's nothing that's part of that, their mandate, to protect the culture, to protect the environment, and to protect from overcrowding. It has to start, it seems to me, at the ministerial level, where you say to these people, because I've spoken to them, and they say, that sounds like a great idea, we'd love to solve that, but I'm a marketing person, it's not part of my mandate to solve that problem. At this level, it seems that you have the power to say, we're expanding that. It's not going to be a DMO anymore. It's going to be, the M stands for management or something else, a different kind of an organization that has a checks and balances system so that there are people in it that are actually looking after these things. Does that make sense?
Well, I'd like to respond to that because I think you're onto something. That's Doug Lansky. That's him for you. No, but I think he's onto something because, you see, tourism is evolving into be this really mega business activity, which has now to be structured, which has now to be organized. It's not the leisure event that used to occupy the moments of the rich and famous and the well-heeled, who really want a weekend somewhere exotic, so you sail off to some distant place or you fly over to some little island. This is now serious economic activity. This is about fiscal arrangements. This is about marketing arrangements. This is about financial and business arrangements. So you're right. We in government have to look now at public policies that are going to manage this industry and are going to make it work for you. Because tourism is driven by the same principles of the market that all other commodities are now subject to. Demand and supply. And the DMOs are on the demand side. they are going to bring the visitors in. And as the visitors come, they create demand immediate in the destination. Demand for what? For goods and services, for food, for entertainment, for shopping and cultural assets that they utilize, for your parks and your markets, for your ecotourism values and your geophysical features that they go to see. That's the consumption side. That's the supply side for hotel rooms and furnishings and pots and pans and cans and kettles. Now, who makes those? Who provides those? It has to be the recipient countries. Mm-hmm. So we have to build that public policy to enable the recipient countries to do that. And if we don't, then the management of the environment, the management of the product, which becomes our responsibility, yes, cannot be given to the DMOs, because the DMOs are on the demand side, the marketing side. I think we need to get there where we have that understanding that now we have roles and responsibilities. And that it's a PPP that is going to have to come into play to enable this to happen. Yeah. It's a big industry now.
I think that's a very good take on this, and I really like the question. And since we're almost out of time, though, maybe we can use this as the sort of final. So each of you, other three ministers, could have two minutes just to answer this question. How will you in your country?
I want to get back to Doug, okay?
Oh, sure.
Because I really like the question, because it really drives a very, very important point, which we have always been emphasizing in Jordan. In Jordan, when you want, I mean, I say not everybody is a brain surgeon, but in Jordan, everybody is a tourism expert, okay? So, and I love it, because that means everybody's it's very, they feel a part of it. You know, when we talk about tourism, we think tourism is only marketing. And this is where we miss the point that it's an entire value chain. It's a cluster. It's actors, factors. You have so many factors coming in play together, and this is where the sector becomes strong or less strong or weak. Marketing is only one small aspect of the entire chain. I mean, it's a link, it's a very important link, but there are so many links in this chain, and as they say, a chain is as strong as its weakest link, and this is, I think, all my colleagues would agree with me, this is where we have to make sure that all the links are of a certain strength so the entire sector comes out as being healthy and vibrant.
I think, we'd like you to know, tourism is going to be the biggest industry in the world. Now, I'm looking at it really. If you look at the damage that industry inflicts on Mother Earth, I think the least damage is caused by tourism. If you look at it as an industry, least damage is caused by tourism. See, this is where, again, I agree with the Jordanian minister. The community needs to sit together and see how we can take it in the long run, which is sustainable, where we all survive together. I mean, this is one of the fundamental key beliefs of India, that we all need to survive together, exist together, and share the fruits of development. So if you have that basic thinking at the back of our mind, I think it's possible to involve communities. And also things are going to get a lot easier. Now, take, for example, pollution. In another possibly 15 years, we won't have diesel and petrol cars anymore. So the pollution levels on the on pressure on the world, on the universe, on the Mother Earth is going to be a lot less. So basically, we can put in a whole lot more of people out there, but the pollution levels come down. So we need to kind of think technology and also, but the basic ideology behind our thinking has to be very, very clear, that we all need to be in it together.
Okay, it's a very positive message.
Yeah, I want to thank our colleague for the question, and I really, like you, enjoy the question, but I just want to tell a personal story that we fly today early morning coming here from my country, from Albania. But yesterday by night, I've been for 3 hours in a very intensive public debate in one of the national television in Albania, just talking with a panel with journalists and guys from NGOs, and just talking for the same question, how it needs to protect the environment, or how we can develop the country in the tourism side. And so, like I mentioned, our main job is how to find this equilibrium. In the same time, we want to protect all what the God has created to our countries, the beauty, the nature, and everything else. But at the same time, we are ministers, and with our policy, we are not the devils. We are not the angels, but we need to find an equilibrium, and we need to be the human beings. The people vote us for making policy. We are trying to be here and to work together for creating policy which create the standards in this development. But at the same time, we need to find the best way how to fight the poverty in our country. Because for all of us, it's very clear that to achieve some standards, first we need to talk about the economy and how to make the good economy in our, I'm talking about Albania, but it maybe it's the same debate all over, is how to protect the beauty and to develop with some criteria which are much more better if we are going in a line that we make agreement together, that just go in the individual measures and individual initiatives. So just to be back to the answer, is that for sure in Albania, for example, we have created 4 poles of the tourism, and 2 of them are to the seaside, and we have a huge seaside, virgin one, and we want to develop that, but the same one, the 3rd one is the Albanian Alps, and the philosophy that we have in this part of Albania, which is full of mountains, very beautiful one, is only one sentence. We'll develop this area, just protected that beautiful like the God has created. So nobody will touch this place, and so we'll create a new destination just without doing anything on that.
Okay.
Great. Thank you all for your input on this. I think that was very valuable. Thank you all for joining us for this panel. Please join me in thanking the ministers for their valuable insights on this panel.